Good evening. Welcome to School Committee for March 2nd, 2015. John's going to check for the monitor. We will start our agenda. We're not going to do minutes this evening. We'll hold those in abeyance till our next meeting. So we'll begin with communications. Brad Patterson is with us from the high school. Welcome, Brad. That's Dr. Gallows, yep.
So to start off, the HHS Drama Club performed the festival performance last Friday for us at the high school. Moved on to the semi-finalist round, and multiple students within the play were individually identified for their contributions, such as Chris McDonald, who was awarded Outstanding Actor Award, Kaylee Evan Ayer, and they received the Outstanding Ensemble Awards, and Emma Gilmore and Rebecca Smith for Outstanding Staff Execution Award. Also, the Drama Club will be having auditions for the comedy You Can't Take It With You tomorrow, Thursday after school. Also, last Friday, Mr. Lockheim and Mock Trial visited Whitman Hanson and won by the largest margin yet for the team. 30 minutes ago marked the end of the Chipotle night for the Hinghamton OG Exchange, and if you were to bring a coupon, 50% of your purchase at Chipotle would go to funding for the trip. Stuco today just started the drive for the Salvation Army clothing. And Wednesday is Spread the Word to End the Word. Everyone should wear blue in support and to end the use of the word R. And there will be a banner that will be in the main lobby and all 3 lunches for students to sign. After school Wednesday, the debate team will be going down to New Bedford for the final rounds of the season with Ms. Nugent. And it's looking very favorable since multiple teams are undefeated and may go in the final round. Sports News boys hockey won their games over the weekend and will continue their playoff bid this Thursday. Spring track sign-ups for after school today, and the banquet for their winter season will be tomorrow night. Also, tomorrow boys baseball will be having a preseason meeting, and the Hinghamton Exchange will be organizing a trip to the TD Garden to see a Celtics-Sixers game in 2 weeks on March 16th. Also, the class of 2017 will be sponsoring the Hingham Antique Show, which will be Saturday, March 21st and 22nd at the New Hingham Middle School. So I have tickets that, if you were to bring $1 will go to the class of 2017, and they will be there sponsoring the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any questions or comments?
I just say that you can't take it with you when I was in high school. Thank you.
Sounds like you're having a busy week at Hingham High, or a couple of weeks.
First Monday in school in a while, huh, Brad?
Yeah.
How'd that go over? People have a transition problem?
Yeah, it's going to be hard going to a full week of school.
Yeah. Keeling over by Wednesday.
No half day, right?
That's
Full
right.
day on Wednesday?
Wow, that's a tough one. Thank you, Brad. That's great. Okay, we're going to skip over 3.2 for the moment. Any other communications, Don?
I did leave a couple of things for you tonight, recent happenings that involve a letter. On Saturday, the lacrosse, I don't know what to call them, lacrosse followers and supporters spent
Lacrosse community.
yeah, right.
LAX
Spent a good portion of the day up at the turf field trying to make some dents or holes in the snow and hopefully allowing Mother Nature to do her work as the weather gets warmer and possibly we get some rain. It was a huge effort. I was up there a couple of times, and the enormity of the space just strikes you when you see a lot of people out there. But anyway, there's a letter that John Todd had written in behalf of this group and suggesting that they wanted to provide this community service and outreach and take a bit of the load of snow removal anyway off. And on the reverse side of that, I had a parent who communicated with me just last week saying, I'm up on my roof as we speak, shoveling, and just was wondering, wouldn't students be able to come forward and help us with some of the clearing of our fields and athletic spaces? And I wrote back and told her what had happened that day. Margaret sent us along a photo, I think at the end of the day over the weekend, and I did send that to you. There also is a letter that came on last Thursday or Friday after the packet went out anyway, and it is a person who is not in favor of a Good Friday option for makeup days, and that topic is going to be later on our agenda, so you should have that. I told her that I would share it with you, and I think that's it on the communication.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that I stopped by the high school on Saturday. There was probably about 150 kids and parents, lacrosse supporters, who were out there with shovels digging holes and then paths to connect them, let the sun, which was shining brightly on Saturday, kind of reach the turf and irradiate. Boosters brought pizza. It was just a great community event. Really nice to see folks come out and try to help kind of beat the weather a little bit. So really appreciative of John Todd and the lacrosse community for that. Okay. So let's move on to questions and comments from the audience. Anything not on the agenda? No? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Well, weather-related update, the topic right now that's most on people's minds is what are we going to do about makeup, and that is further on your agenda, so I won't get into that. But certainly through last week, we continued to remove snow from roofs. Again, an enormous task that some of our peers on the South Shore are going through. So that has gone well. We do have some invoices in already because I think everyone on both sides of Town Hall is concerned about what the total cost of all this is going to be. We had some issues related to the weather, not to roofs, but to other things that are weather related. We had a pipe to a sprinkler system at South School burst last week and had some fairly significant flooding. Unfortunately, the lower area, in fact, a lot of the water actually went right out the door and down the bus loop and down Main Street, but still, it did need to be vacuumed up, and yeah, and that was well accomplished by Service Master or Service Pro?
Master.
Service Master. They're very quick and they have all the right equipment and so on. So there's damage that will need to be, doesn't look initially like there could be damage, but whenever water sits particularly on a wood floor such as the gym. So John actually traveled around the buildings last week with the insurance adjuster, pointing out some things that we will be looking to recover damage from. There was prior in the first storm some damage to that occurred because of the equipment on the roof at East School, where snow, blizzard blown snow got in there and then caused some mechanical problems. So there's that issue. And also last week on Monday or Tuesday at the high school, there was a leak that was discovered in the industrial arts area. It occurred overnight. Early custodians in the morning got it squared away. And so by the time students and most of the staff were there, it was all cleaned up. But again, the concern is while the water came out on the cement floor that's part of the shop area, there was some water that traveled across the corridor and onto a piece of the gym floor. We don't know the extent of that, but there can be some potential damage there. In fact, we didn't even know about that incursion into the gym early on because we simply heard there'd been a leak. It got cleaned up before school started. And at the end of the week, we asked for a report on the whole incident because we hadn't received one at that point, and that was where there was a concern that was raised about the wood floor. So there will be things that will come along in addition to that. After storms like this, roof leaks and all kinds of other things are likely to befall us, but at the moment, getting rid of the snow was a good thing, and kind of warm day we had today was a good thing, and the weather forecasters being wrong for this morning's forecast was a good thing, so hopefully things are moving in a good direction. But we will talk further about that topic in the agenda tonight. Full-day kindergarten update, things are moving along. The request for approval of our tuition scale has gone to DESE. I'm hoping this week to get that approved. It is the one thing that is outstanding in terms of us allowing us to set the actual dates of the formal enrollment period, And so as soon as we get that, we can set the dates. We have the full-day kindergarten committee meeting again on Wednesday afternoon. And we were looking particularly at the things that need to go into the packet and get some feedback on those. We also will be sharing at that meeting the curriculum outline, the sample schedule that's been developed that also includes the piece that would be for the embedded program for the part day students. So we're making good progress there. And I think I mentioned last week when we went over the budget that we have put those salary figures into the budget, and in the particular sections of the budget where they are, there is the offset that would be covered by the tuitions, and therefore there's no change in the bottom line by having put those in the budget. So that's where we are on that, and continuing to do some outreach to make parents aware of that, to respond to questions. We're producing a letter about the different accommodations that will occur for children with special needs and putting that into a letter form, making sure that all of the pre-K parents that are in our community, in our program, our pre-K program, get copies of that. So moving forward with all of those things. In your packet, there is a revised calendar for the rest of the year because of the changes that you all approved at last week's meeting. So we will not have a school committee meeting this coming Monday night on the 9th, but we will have meetings on the 16th and the 30th coming up, and on the, what was the April date?
13th.
The 13th of April. So those changes are all new. We'll make sure that not only gets posted, although we post each meeting individually in addition to that, but that gets distributed to everyone. I gave it out the other night to the leadership team, and there is a companion document, and that is revised dates for those departments that will be presenting program reviews that are coming along with that. In your packet, in addition to some budget information, there is a copy of the forecast, so when Ted gets here, you have a copy of that. I believe I also emailed it to you the other day, and there is some information that Ray will be talking with you about toward the end of the meeting that has to do with the planning board decision that we're going to have discussion about next week. At what time is the planning board?
We usually start at 7 o'clock. I haven't seen the agenda yet, so I don't know where we're going to fall.
Okay. So that's it for the questions and comments.
Great. Well, if Ted comes, John, do you want to maybe do the Kids in Action and the integrated preschool, right? Because we could probably get through those more quickly.
I hope so, yeah, sure.
Let's do those first before Ted comes, and then, because I don't want to interrupt the budget presentation after we start.
Okay.
And did you have, I'm sorry, do you have that passenger van bid again tonight, or no?
With the passenger van bid, I do have information on the passenger van.
We can do that later. I just
Okay.
wanted to ask. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remembered, so.
Right, it won't be a request for an award, but
Okay.
we can talk about that later.
Okay.
Okay, sure. So within your packets, there's 2 items that are for fee reviews. One has to do with the Kids in Action, and the other has to do with the pre-K program. Kids in Action, the structure of the program will change next year. We're good? The structure of the program will change next year because, a significant portion of the Kids in Action program, of course, was the wraparound kindergarten. With the advent of us offering full-day K to all, that portion of the program will go away. So the schedule that you have before you is taking it has 2 components. One is there's a new pilot that we're looking to offer, and that would be to extend the pre-kindergarten by an hour and a half. So instead of a 2.5-hour program, it would be a 4-hour program. And that's come at Kathy. Kathy has been talking with parents who are looking for this pilot. So we thought that we would, put a rate structure in place for it so that we could offer such a pilot. The way we've priced that in this schedule is the schedule we've taken last year's rates and we've increased them by 5% approximately, rounded to the nearest $5. And that 5%, we thought with the program is going to lose a significant portion of revenue. I think it's a very important program for the community. And, and it's still at very competitive rates. It's actually below, regular market rates. So it's an excellent program. But we thought the 5% would be the right amount this year so that we have enough base to make sure we get a good look at the program and see how it can sustain for future years and to bring the program forward. So what you have before you is what the new program structure would actually look like without full day K at a 5% increase. And there's one other exception on this, on the 5%. The 2-day program, there was an imbalance in the proposed monthly. So we've increased that that is actually an increase of 16%. It's gone from $310 to $360. And that was because it seemed to be a discounted value for a 2-day program that was not in sync with what the discounted value would be for the 5-day program. So we've increased that to correct the imbalance. That's the bottom, about the bottom right middle column that you see where it's at $360 a month as opposed to $310. So we'd ask that, Kathy's here. If you had any questions, she'd be happy to answer them. But what we're proposing is that this schedule be approved if you would like, or questions?
We should also add that at the bottom of the KIA proposal, there is reference to the third-party biller fax, and that it would be the same billing agency that we would be involving for the full-day K tuition.
And the rate will stay the same for this year for parents to pay $43. Last year we limited the rate to pick up that $43 to account for that. So, and the third-party billing management company has actually been very, very effective. And the collections are doing very well, but the accounts receivable are practically nil. I think it's a convenience for the administration. I think it's also a convenience for parents as well. Having a child in college or a student in college at this point, it's the same company. I use it, and it's excellent because I never have to think of a thing. It just goes in and grabs the money, and I don't have to worry about being late.
Make sure the money's there.
That's what I have to do. I have to make sure the money's there. But
I had a question. So, on the back of the Kids in Action, the second item, extended day kindergarten. So, presumably that would be very few.
That's last year's.
That stay after the school day is over.
Yeah.
That's a current year.
Right.
The back was current year. So extended day kindergarten would be.
That's going away.
Yeah, the
completely.
2015. So today.
What,
Go ahead.
what about the handful of, so we're not going to offer anything for the handful
I
of
don't think
kids
that
that
we
may not
can.
want to, right?
That would be a
Space
challenge
problem.
in terms of space.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It would be.
And also, we don't have, I don't anticipate that we would have enough children to allow us to pay for the costs of that. We could be wrong about that, but at this point, I don't anticipate that we will have either the space or enough children to justify staffing that we would need.
And hopefully, the program would be more expensive in Kids in Action than it would be with full day K. So.
2 questions. The last time you had a rate increase was 2 years ago?
No, I think we raised them last year,
Last
Liza. Yes, I believe we went up last year only 2.5% because we were going to have them incur that $40 fee for the payment
Okay.
plan.
All right.
Um,
And on the before school fees, it shows, this may be a typo, it shows the same amount for.
That's
or
correct.
So before school, doesn't matter how many days you pay the same amount?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Because we have to have staffing there for the before school, regardless of how many days they are.
Okay.
And it's been like that for since I've been here, for sure. And I think it does make sense because there's you know, the thing is, well, the kids come, but I mean, it's like, you know, why not bring them 5 days if you're going to work 5 days, you know? So,
Yeah, most of
Yeah.
them are there because of the work-related
Right.
countries.
Right. Just to, Liza makes a good point, just to remind folks and for the folks at home, this is something we look at every year, usually around March, either in the context of the budget season or just after we've voted the budget, looking at these fees. And typically they tend to go up every year. We try to keep up with our costs. I think there was one occasion a few years ago where we raised one and not the other, but that was because there was a prior year where there was a significant increase and there wasn't the need seen. So,
that's right. I mean, this year, I think we're asking for 5% as opposed to, you know, let's say a 2.5%. And that's because, you know, the program is very important, I think, for the community. The program is very liquid right now. It has a good balance getting into this new year, but this new year without kindergarten, which has been a very large source of revenue for this program, you know, all the faith in Kathy making this program work and be beneficial for the community, but we could certainly use the extra revenue. And if we end up very liquid at the end of the year and we know that the program's successful and things are working, then we don't have to raise it as much next year. So this isn't, I wouldn't want you to think we'd be asking for this type of increased year after year, unless, of course, the program calls for it because of decreased volumes.
any other questions, comments? Dennis, do you want to make a motion?
To move that we accept approve the proposed Kids in Action fees for the 2015-16 year.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to vote the integrated, or is that considered part of the same thing?
Yeah, likewise the integrated. John, anything to?
No, this is a 2.5% increase, you know, rounded to the nearest $5. You know, that's basically covering the cost of the, you know, increases
Yep.
for the school system. So we have a 2-day program, 3-day program, and a 4-day program. And, you know, they work with the instructors and with the principal and the program to determine how many days they want. And, you know, as you know, this is an integrated program, and these tuitions are for the model kids within the special education setting. And it's important that we have those model kids for the program. And that's why you may see that these rates are lower, per se, than you might otherwise see in some other pre-K programs.
Right. And just for the folks at home, we're talking about the integrated pre-K program, which is at East Elementary.
That's correct.
Okay.
I would like to move the proposed tuition for the Hingham Public Schools integrated pre-K program for the 2015-16 year as proposed.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great. Thank you. That's great. Okay, well, I guess we'll go into budget now.
How can we discuss the budget without discussing the
I know, it's a little challenging.
So why don't we go into the makeup days?
We could do that.
Another challenging topic.
Well, I'm just,
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah, let's do that. So 6.4, makeup days due to weather-related issues. So just to refresh everyone's memory, we did talk about this last week and started to talk about it a little bit at the meeting prior to that. So as folks at home may not realize, so a 180-day school year is required. The calendar is required to carry 185 days with 5 days built in. We've exceeded that. We're now at 7 days for the entire district, 8 days for PRS. So if we were to go just looking at June, we are currently at June 24th is the last day for the entire district, except for PRS, which would be the 25th. And there's been, you know, a number of folks are asking, you know, how we're going to approach that. Are we looking at other options? Last week, you'll recall, we did discuss a number of options. that are available. There aren't that many that are available, but there are some that are available. We started discussing that, and I think we came to a little bit of a consensus with respect to at least one aspect of it, and we can explore that further this evening. And I think we've gotten some additional feedback and information from the teachers that Dot can share with us.
Well, I think perhaps we could ask Alec to share the
Yeah,
information.
sure.
The
So
survey.
we have Alec. Alec, I'm going to invite you up.
They have it, but.
Alec is president of the Hingham Education Association Unit A, the teachers, what we call the teachers union. And I think that there was a survey done through the Mass Teachers Association, and some results that maybe he'd like to share with us.
Sure, yes, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Alec Porter. I'm the president of the Massachusetts Teachers Association. Absolutely not. Absolutely
Congratulations.
yeah. It's news to Barbara. I'm president of the Hingham Education Association, and the last few days we actually, as you might imagine, there's been a lot of input. Teachers have been asking me a lot of questions, both Unit A, which are regular teachers, as well as Unit B, which are paraeducators. Sort of where are we going and what say do we have in this? And so we sent a letter to the school committee asking to bargain, and in fact we actually submitted or put out an online survey. Approximately 280 to 290 educators, both Unit A and Unit B, responded, as well as offering there's probably about 100 to 150 comments. By and large, at least the results have shown that, and the survey ended midnight last night, the results showed that the first, we asked the teachers to rank in order of preference something that we had discussed earlier, which was, in no particular order, the elimination of Good Friday, dipping into April vacation, going into June as late as possible, which would, of course, would be June 30th, or offering the occasional Saturday school. And if memory serves, the order of the results of the survey was the elimination of Good Friday was the #1 choice, followed by extending June, going until the 30th, and then Saturday school, or offering a couple of Saturdays, half-day Saturdays, and then the very last choice was April vacation. And people, as you might imagine, I mean, ultimately, as Dr. Gallo and I have discussed, whatever decision is made, someone, somewhere, some group will be angry or upset because, there are a lot of people, people responded with the comments ranging from I've already made plans for April vacation to Saturday is the Sabbath for me, or, why can't we consider Sundays, to, the weekends are the only time I see my family. Other teachers are just, as I said last time, other teachers are simply kind of wired, people such as myself, that you just extend to June until you run out of days in June. That's just the way it, we've not that we've done it in the past, but that's just the way I've always, interpreted it. So that's where we stand right now. So I'm not sure. I mean, I understand this was on the agenda, so that's why I'm here, but I'm happy to take any questions, but otherwise I think it's all pretty self-explanatory.
So, Alex,
Yeah.
we seem to have some consensus from the discussion we had last week in that I think this committee felt that nobody really wanted to put April vacation on the table, and it seems like the teachers also are not interested in that, and I don't think parents that I've spoken to are interested in that. So I'm wondering if we can come to some consensus on things that we agree on.
Sure.
I think Good Friday was something we all felt, and maybe we don't go a full day, but we get out at 1 o'clock to allow some people that want to attend a religious service at 3 in the afternoon to perhaps do that. But there seems to be some consensus on that day with both the unions and ourselves.
Sure. Again, I'm happy to have this discussion maybe with Dr. Gallo and get a chance to. I sent the results both to Tom Melanson, negotiations chair, and Jackie, our MTA representative, and we haven't had a chance to actually talk about it amongst ourselves. But certainly, I would be happy to have a conversation. I think it's safe to, if you like, if nothing else, to reduce the options to 3. The elimination of, to take the April vacation option off the table, I think is a safe call. I would agree with you. I mean, and you've mentioned it before. I know I teach juniors and seniors, and I I know juniors, they visit a lot of colleges during that time, and I know a host of teachers have made plans already for April vacation, so,
Trips planned,
absolutely.
families made vacations, so.
So,
To the extent, I mean, so the fact that you're going to go back and speak, the only problem with that is that then puts us, we don't make a decision now, we don't meet for another 2 weeks. And if we want to let teachers and parents know, I'm just wondering if there's some way to focus on the things we agree on, which is to take the April vacation. I guess, is there any consensus for talking about Good Friday at this point in time?
I mean, I think we pretty much, this kind of validates or whatever corroborates what we thought about April vacations. I think that's probably
Right.
a non-starter.
I would agree.
Right. You know, I did have one question in regard to the extension. We said that, I think it was where the middle school has that large trip planned. I had mentioned the last time, I don't know if we were able to do it, to talk about the person, you know, whoever organizes that trip, to the possibility of,
Check to see whether or not there was any way to postpone it or move the dates or whatever, and he said no, it was a package thing, but particularly around the airfare for that, or the air arrangements
Okay.
for that number of children, which is, I think, 97 kids and 10 teachers, that just wasn't possible, but we did talk about that.
thank you.
But if that were to end up being a day that would be an additional day of school, Derek Smith and I have also talked about how that could conceivably work if we went in that direction, and so we do have some thoughts about that.
They're going to Europe, right, so they'll be on the plane like a whole day. Couldn't you arrange everybody in the seats and have a little,
Well, but we have to think
interactive
of both groups of
discussion,
people. The people who are going, actually 3 groups of people. People who are going on the trip, the children who wouldn't be going on the trip, and how we would manage the faculty. So we have some thoughts if we want to discuss on that particular topic as to how that could work. So we're trying to be prepared with a variety of options that we would have plans for. But you wanted to talk about the Good Friday.
Tell parents, if we have some consensus on a few items, to let them know, teachers and parents, going forward. And I'm certainly trying to be very respectful of what the two unions want, but I also think we can't wait another 2 weeks to make any decision. That's my feeling. I don't know how other people feel about it.
No, I agree. I think there's consensus on Good Friday. What time do we have to go to make it count as a full
It
day?
would be my goal, because, you know, the sense is that we need to maintain the number of hours that we had in the 180 days. And so, as you know from last week, we did take some release days that were planned for the rest of the year and made them into full days of school. So that would allow us, in a sense, to replace a release day that we were going to have on a Wednesday and make that on the Friday, if it were Good Friday, for example. But I think the feeling is that we're trying to make up as much learning time as we can, so that where a release day, for example, on a Wednesday would involve lunch built in. Let's just get rid of the lunch. If I were to recommend for a release day on the Good Friday, we'd want to get youngsters out early enough to be able to participate if there were services, that kind of thing, but also not to waste precious learning time and having lunch. So maybe you serve, have a break in the morning for a 10-minute snack or something and go for what would nearly be a full day of learning time, as opposed to our standard release day, which is 2-hour release with lunch.
It was a full day, but children or parents could request an early release, for religious purposes.
Well, folks could always
Yeah.
do that. I think it would be important for us as a courtesy to find out what is
Right.
planned in our town, but, certainly
Talk to
someone,
the churches about moving services later in the day.
yeah, and certainly, certainly a teacher might choose to request a religious day too. So I think we shouldn't focus on what the exceptions might be, because people have their own conscience and their own want to do things. But that I would be looking to make it a release day, but to buy learning time and trade learning time for lunch. So it sounds like a little thing, but we're trying to add hours here that are pre-test hours before MCAS, for example, and AP exams and all those things. So.
You
You had mentioned when we talked about days in June, you talked about not only the 8th grade trip that starts on the 23rd, but there was another group that was going on another trip.
No, there were a couple of groups going on April vacation trips.
April, okay.
That was at the high school. The other thing that has happened is that because now we are into the second week, there are a number of people who've informed us that their children, they enrolled their children in sleepaway camps and things that happen to start on the 22nd. And they did that at a time when school was going to be getting out on the 15th. I'm sure that someone who's signed up for sleepaway camp is probably going to go. So there are some things like that, but the only large group thing that I know about is the 8th grade trip.
So what do we need to do to make a decision about Good Friday?
We can vote on that tonight. I mean, it seems like there's, a large number of teachers who, support that as their first choice. If we wanted to move forward with that, at least we'd have one day in hand, and then we could have further discussion about other options in the interim. Maybe we could sit down and talk more about it. Taking the April vacation off the table, so really just looking at, combination of June days and potential Saturdays, keeping in mind that we need to do something for PRS separately then, and my understanding is that folks are not averse to a Saturday for PRS.
Again, Dr. Gallo and I and Tom spoke about that. PRS, I do know, I can tell you, they conducted their own separate survey because that 8th day was something that was unique to that school. And I believe the choices were, the number one choice was in fact the elimination of Good Friday. However, there was a caveat saying that based on the decision that was being made for the HEA, the greater, right, the larger group, that they would go to their second choice, which I believe was a half-day Saturday.
So I would think you might want to either select a Saturday for PRS, and so people know, and try to plan that as well as much as they can, yeah.
So here's what I would suggest, because I think you had mentioned 2 Saturdays as possible dates, the 21st of March.
21st was one that was good for
Everybody.
Everyone.
And then the 28th, which was no good for the high school.
Right.
Okay. So I would suggest, if we want to look at a Saturday for PRS, which would be the equivalent of a release day, make that the 28th, leaving the 21st available for future discussion. Yeah. Leaving the 21st available for future discussion for the rest of the district. And
First of March or first of May?
March. I understand. I understand.
That's why we're having this
I was going to
conversation.
just check on where MCAS is
Yeah.
for the elementary to see whether or not.
Those dates just revised yesterday. We got an email
Yes, it was.
about it.
They've gone with an alternate set of dates.
I mean, based on the information about the field trip at the middle school and the fact that, the camp situation, which again, I don't know how many kids there are, but I'm guessing it's a significant number. I don't know that. If we could, do a second Saturday for the, entire, an additional Saturday we would then, if we can get a day for Good Friday and a day off a Saturday, we've now bought back to the 22nd, right? Barring any additional issues, which would, I think, then say, hey, look, if something else happens and we have to go beyond the 22nd, then we go beyond the 22nd. It seems to me that might, like you say, you're never gonna please everybody, but.
No, but Alec hasn't had a chance to.
No, I'm not saying, but I'm saying from our perspective, based on at least what I'm hearing.
Well, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily agree about that
Okay.
Saturday.
That's
I'd
fine.
rather do one day in June and a Good
Okay.
Friday.
But then we're gonna have several hundred kids probably that aren't gonna be there.
You're gonna have it either way, Dennis. The people aren't gonna go on a Saturday.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I mean, I agree,
Yeah.
extending into June is kind of what,
Okay.
that's how my mind has always been
That's fine.
set.
I mean, I will say too, there are a lot of teachers who have second jobs on Saturday.
Yeah.
and
That's a good
graduate
point.
courses on Saturday.
Yeah,
Students
okay.
have second jobs, they have first jobs.
Right, right.
They also have Saturdays are busy.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, when we have athletic contests and things of that nature, so.
My only concern with extending into June is that then you also have kids AP exams, and adding on in June is not going to really help any of those people, any of those kids. So you have, student learning. That's my concern.
When are the AP exams?
Early May.
They're always in May, and the only MCAS that we have at the elementary school is grade 3 ELA, and that is March 31st. So that is after the Saturday MCAS.
So in order to
I mean,
extend
that's
any
after the-
learning, you'd have to extend that Saturday would have to take place in March or April.
Correct. And we actually only have one Saturday date that works
This is
for
the elementary schedule.
all the schools, which is March 21st.
It's,
it's
the same on the comp
Yeah.
is that day.
So the date we were talking about that worked for everyone was March 21st.
March 21st, and then March 28th as a potential just PRS date.
And how many children take AP exams?
Oh, gosh,
Hundreds.
100 or,
100?
they're over a period of a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and that's in May.
So that's about 100?
No.
Yeah,
More than
think
100.
Oh, I think it's probably more than that.
Yeah, it's
You got
at least
juniors and
100
seniors that
kids.
take
There are more
AP.
exams than that because kids take multiple exams, but it's a fair number if you think of all the courses. We've got 14 or so AP courses, and if each one of them only had 10 youngsters in it, that's 140. So it's a big number of students.
So Carol, I'm just trying to do the math,
Yeah.
right? I mean, so you hold a Saturday class and you look at maybe losing a couple hundred kids because they have sports all the way K through 12, or are you trying to fit some, classes in, for 140 kids who take AP exams? Or maybe you hold a class.
Picking academics over sports, so I'm not
No,
rearranging my kid's schedule.
I'm
because
not
they have
choosing
that.
academics over sports. I'm just saying, where are you
You're
going to
saying-
lose the most amount of kids? So are you going to lose them on the 22nd, or that Tuesday in June? Or are you going to lose them on a Saturday?
Hard to know.
I don't know. I'm just trying to, it's math, actually.
Couldn't we also suggest that, number one, I don't know that anyone's going to be doing any spring sports even on March 28th or 21st.
probably
I was just
very
talking to Rick Swanson
true.
today about baseball, and he says he doesn't think they're getting on anything anytime soon. But the other thing, too, is, if we were to make a decision and move forward with Saturday school, couldn't you say that you need to come to school on Saturday and you need to skip your sports, period?
Reschedule the sports.
Right? School is school, and if school is rescheduled for a Saturday, then that's where you need to be. Unless a kid is sick. And if a kid is sick, he can produce a doctor's note. I don't know. There's just few options.
I think if the Saturday, in terms of sports for high school, were in earlier March, no one is going to be playing.
Sure.
On the other hand, the later it gets,
Right.
the more likely there is to be make-up games and all those things. But in June, the sports are all over. They're over around the time of graduation, so.
May I ask a question? Actually, there was a question that was posed to me the other day. Is there an attendance rate that needs to be met in order for the school day to count?
No.
No.
Okay. All right. Someone had said to me, if the school, across the district, if it was lower than a certain
Yeah.
percentage.
As
It
long
used
as
to
we've
be,
made
but
our
it isn't
total number
anymore.
of hours.
It used to be, but it's no
Yeah.
longer the case. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
The other thing we talked about was applying for a waiver.
Which I still think we should do. I sent around last week the story about Braintree and Quincy, who had both requested a waiver from the Commissioner of Education. We were talking with Dot earlier about that, and I guess there was some directive that came out from the Commissioner that, he might only consider a waiver if you were beyond the June 30th. The other two towns that had requested that waiver specifically had more snow days than we did. But we had some discussion earlier about, kind of the objective criteria and making that determination that, there were days when the state of emergency was declared in the Commonwealth and there were travel bans initiated, and there was at least one day where it was a statewide travel ban on January 27th. And if that's the case, then shouldn't any district in the Commonwealth who applied for a waiver based on that objective criteria be given a waiver for that day. It would seem to me that it's worth requesting for only that reason, whether it goes to the commissioner, whether it goes to the commissioner and the governor. I think it's worth exploring. All they can say is no. It seems like moving forward on Good Friday makes sense tonight. Moving forward on the one Saturday for PRS makes sense tonight, based on the feedback we've gotten. Eliminating April vacation as an option, and then
When we say eliminating.
as an option.
Eliminating
Correct.
April vacation.
And then,
as the option.
if we'd like to consider voting to request the administration seek a waiver for one or more days, and then perhaps we can revisit in the next couple of weeks another option if we think we need to.
The only thing is that, realistically, if the other good option is March 21st, and if our next meeting is March 16th, I don't think it's, either, again, we haven't had a full discussion, but either we think it's a good idea to do that other Saturday, or we think it's not a good idea. I think it'd be worthwhile getting the sense of the whole group, because we think it's a good idea, we might want to try that. If we think if it's really split, then we might just say, okay, we'll let it go.
I mean, if folks are concerned about sports, I think spring sports only start on March 16th. And I know that, they're looking for tryouts and evaluations and stuff to be held indoors. They've secured space for different things. I know, youth sports have started kind of the evaluation period for spring sports, but, it's going to depend on field availability. And I think it's going to be some time. I don't think any of those seasons are starting until April. So I don't know that if you wanted to look at the March 21st date.
I'm just saying, it seems to me if we wait 2 weeks, it's really
Like, do we
kind of a
want
mood.
people?
Yeah, I mean, even to communicate to everybody that it's happened, right?
But it may be that you could schedule another time to take a vote. My concern is that there has not been any discussion on the other
sure.
side, and we thought that we should go forward with listening to proposals.
You ask me and I can. Yes, Carlos, would you like to please come up here? You tell the folks who you are. Come to the mic. Tell the folks who you are, your address, and.
Hi, my name is Carlos da Silva, 5 Dorassi Road. I'm the chairman of the Hingham Democratic Acton Committee. I also volunteer with the Hingham Youth Soccer. So we are starting April 4th, I believe. Just a matter of a suggestion. I'm not sure if you have given any thoughts to extending the, couple of days, the school day,
You mean the time?
the time, by a couple of hours.
Comply with, a lot of people had that same kind of thought. I call it bundling hours and minutes to make days. And while there's a lot of merit in saying that's a way to give us more learning time, that would not meet the commissioner's definition of what a day is. It wouldn't not be counted as part of the 180.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you have to have both the 180 and the next number of hours.
Any other thoughts from folks on this? I know it's a controversial topic. People are interested in knowing.
Schedule a Saturday, you should do the 21st, because we lose it. If we wait longer, we lose that opportunity.
No, you're right. It just the concern is that we would be, it seems like Good Friday seems reasonably acceptable to teachers who have been polled. It seems using the March 28th date as a Saturday, which is one of the two available that we talked about, for PRS seems to be a reasonable accommodation that the teachers are amenable to. It's the additional Saturday that really I think the teachers would prefer not, for the most part, to utilize. They'd rather go to the next fallback, which is extra days in June, which I think we're less interested in. So it's a matter of, and they have requested to bargain. We've had some informal discussions. I think it would be difficult for us to move forward. We could vote that tonight. We could vote, and they could file a grievance, and then we'd have to deal with that.
Or we could vote and say that would be our preference, and then you could you would have the
Subject to
mandate to
well,
bargain it, in good faith, and if we can't come to some kind of agreement. But like you say, I mean, if the 21st is the only really good town-wide day.
Alec, would you be able to get together people to sit down within the next 5 days?
Yes. Yes. Or at least I can speak for Tom and myself. So again, I only just got the results of the survey today. So,
Because you see the struggle we're having. We want to, we want to do the right thing, but at the same time, we're looking at 4,300 kids and what's best for them and what makes sense for the larger group. So,
And giving everybody notice in
Yeah.
advance.
and I think if we did wait till the 16th, that would only be 5 days from the 21st. That would probably be too short notice to arrange that. I think when we did 2 Saturdays at the middle school 4 years ago, there was a few weeks' notice that was given at least.
Well, a number of us will be at the
Planning
planning board
board.
next Monday. So we could, if we could hear from the union by the end of the week,
We
and
could
then
schedule
we
a
could
brief
schedule
meeting just on this topic next Monday.
a finalized vote. Or we could vote what we feel like we have consensus on
Sounds
tonight.
like we could certainly vote the.
I think
Yes.
we can vote the other
Yes.
things tonight.
Correct,
Friday the 28th.
And then just hold off on the
Hold off.
additional Saturday
yes.
until we're able to sit down with the teachers. Does that sound reasonable, Alec?
yeah. Yeah.
Between now and Monday, we could actually sit down and discuss it further and,
I can only speak for myself. I can,
okay. Okay. And if, well, all right, so why don't we tentatively plan to do that? It'll be a time to be determined, because I don't know what the agenda of the planning board meeting is and what time we'll be on that. So if we get the agenda, and I'll call them tomorrow and try to find out if we're not first and we're later on, maybe we can meet quickly before or after. Does that sound
That sounds good. So
okay?
do we need a vote? Do you
Do
want
we,
to?
we have 2, so Carol and I, looks like Carol and I can do it. Are there at least 2 others who could do that next Monday?
Ed?
Okay.
Liza?
Okay.
And Andy may be back.
Okay.
So.
Dr. Geller, is there a groundswell among the superintendent's group to petition the commissioner?
Well, actually, I was saying earlier that we have a meeting here of the Lighthouse Superintendents, just happens to be in our building on Wednesday, and I was going to try to get from that group, typically 15 to 20 people attend in the local area, how many of them are requesting a waiver, and under what conditions are they requesting it? And then also, there has been a lot of talk about a petition to the governor on the other matter of the days that had a travel ban, and so how many people are actually doing that? Is anybody doing that? And be able to bring that information back. And if some people are doing both, then we can do both, and perhaps a sharing of what letters have been sent and so on. So I can get some of that information on Wednesday morning, actually.
Would it be helpful to you if we had a straw vote, if you will, about how we all feel about that topic?
About the waiver kind of thing?
Well, both the waiver and the...
Or the request, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
I would suggest we just go ahead and vote.
Okay.
And those who don't want to do it, don't want to, vote no. But, I mean, I'll go ahead and I'll make a motion that we request that the administration submit a request to the Commissioner of Education and/or the Governor for a waiver of 1 or more days to make up the 180-day requirement as a result of weather-related events.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great.
And do we need a motion now on the makeup
Yeah.
days?
Yeah.
All right, so I will make a motion that we attend school on Good Friday for an extended day,
April 3rd, right?
April 3rd, an extended day for, to be determined by the superintendent. The PRS attends a half-day on March.
Release day.
A release
So
day.
our release days are
Release
only
day
2
on
hours.
Saturday, March 28th. That we take April vacation off the table as a potential makeup source. And I think that's the extent of my motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's great.
Thank you.
And Alec, you'll get back to Dot tomorrow, see if we can. Great, that's great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And
Can I make a request that you report back with total attendance on the Friday and on the Saturday? I'd like to see, just for
idea.
future conversations.
It's a good idea.
Yep.
We did that when we did the Saturday
Middle school.
days a couple of years ago at middle school, and my recollection is it was something like 82%. Most of it, the people not being there had other, somebody had a hockey tournament in Canada, or those kinds of things that typically come up on weekends.
Thank you all for your time on that. It's a difficult decision. Great. Yeah, I was just sorry. I was just seeing if I heard back from Ted. He was supposed to join us tonight, and he is not here, and I have not heard from him. And
Well, in any event,
we can do that.
we could go over the forecast as people have copies of it.
Yeah, could also do 6.7.
Sure, yeah, no, I just meant
Yeah.
in lieu of his absence.
You want to do that? Go right to the numbers?
I mean, you guys
Yeah.
were heard it. so
Sure. Before it gets too late. Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah. So you all have the forecast document. We met on January 26th, I think. I'm sorry, February 26th. And just at that time, the number that was in there for our budget was still just reflecting a 2% increase from year over year. And what we asked them to do, which was custom, was to input the number that was presented at the joint budget presentation to Selectmen and Advisory earlier this month to be consistent with prior practice. So that's what has been inserted into what you have in front of you, which then creates the bottom line negative.
So this handout that Dot provided this evening, the 713,981 would be deducted from this?
Yes. What that figure here is what we presented as part of our joint meeting on February 5th. Where we were then was that number that was presented. And these other change, well, that's not exactly true.
It's not exactly, it's
The
partially that.
The first change, I think, was on the 29th.
Yep.
If you look at one of the handouts for tonight, you will see, no, not that one.
that one.
The handout that
The
has,
number that says on here, Dot, it says combined budget. It says initial FY16 request December, I believe is the same number
No.
that is on this forecast.
46,572.
I just,
So
we made an adjustment.
I know, but it's not on here. I don't think. The number on here is the same number as you have on here. So regardless of what Ted said he does, it didn't seem to happen that way.
Well, actually, it was Sue Nickerson
Okay.
who did it, but,
Sue didn't do it that way.
okay, all right.
I mean, is that, I think that's right,
46,572,683.
which is the number that you have on here as the initial budget.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, that's the initial
Right.
budget, right.
So then 713,981
Is
takes
up.
us down to what we had revised it to as of the 23rd.
There
or
were
whatever it was.
the
Right.
revisions,
But
if
as
you're,
of
if you're
today.
looking at the
Oh,
handout,
tonight?
Because she
that
has
has the
some-
red on it, down at the bottom are the four, we made four separate reductions on different dates.
Mhm.
So the 62,311 looks as if it appeared before February 5th, as did the from 129, so,
Yeah. So the 713 less the 62 and the 319.
But that's not what's on here.
Correct. What's on
Correct.
there
Well,
is what was made to the joint meeting. And the joint meeting was made after the 129.
when we were at the joint meeting, at the meeting the other day, there was the request that our number be updated, and there was some discussion about what it should be at. And my recollection is that we discussed using the February 5th number.
Right. Which would be, which would,
Well,
No.
it may not, I can only explain that we left that meeting, and then we got the email the next day.
The original number, it appears, 46,572,683, and now we're at this 45 million number, which is 713,981. And I understand what you're saying, which is there's 400 and some odd $1,000 that actually happened before the February 5th meeting, and there's another 300. But for the sake of purposes of our discussion tonight, the deficit here should be reduced by 713,981, I believe.
So it goes to 900.
Some of you guys are welcome to chime in if we're going in the wrong direction, as far as I'm concerned.
I think what happened was that somehow during the translation, we used the wrong number.
use the earlier number.
Okay.
Right. So, because it doesn't reflect, it should only be about 332,000 less than the joint presentation, but instead it's 713 because they used a prior number rather than the joint meeting, because there had been, about 400 and something thousand of reductions from as of the 29th or prior to the joint meeting that weren't reflected in that number. So.
Wouldn't that adjust the shortfall too? Off the TED sheet here, the 5-year forecast. So it's just $1 million.
Yeah, it's about
900,
It's about 900,000.
Just.
903,437.
But for folks at home, it's important that we're looking at the town forecast, and we're looking at the gap between what the town forecast is and where our budget is, and I don't think there's been a determination yet about how that would be closed in terms of there are two players in that discussion. So,
And just before our number was revised, we were looking at a positive bottom line for town of about 594,000, and now that's turned into.
So the 900,000 is just about exactly the number that we're using of unused levy capacity in the meals tax, right? Just as a coincidence.
As a coincidence.
Yeah, just coincidence.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So I don't know if you want to report back on, were there any revisions in the forecast such
Sure.
that about health insurance or about local receipts or things like that?
Right. So, the two main things were response on the health insurance. So they had forecast a 10% increase. We're hoping for 0, and it ends up being a 4% increase for everybody except retirees. There's a 0%. Ted thinks that it's possible that 4% increase could be reduced to only a 2% increase, but based on that, they're carrying a number that's a 4% increase in the health insurance.
Motor vehicle.
Yeah, the other thing was the motor vehicle excise tax.
No, it still says 10%.
Right. Correct. It still says 10%, but they inserted a 4% increase number. And in the motor vehicle excise tax, they feel that the numbers are strong enough to support increasing forecast receipts to $4 million from where they were previously, 3.7. Yeah.
Increase.
So that takes it to 8,775,000.
Yes. So those are the two key things.
Positive variance in that for this current year, which will go to fund balance, which will be couple $100,000.
And local receipts as well?
Right,
In
about
the
200,000.
excise, in the
Yeah,
excise.
they 3.7 was estimated, and I
the
think they're at
3.9.
3.9. That's right. Those are the key changes which make an impact.
So, also, my recollection was that we, when we voted last year at town meeting to include meals tax revenues as local receipts. So meals tax revenues are higher than $450,000. So is the additional money gone into local receipts now? Do you know?
It will begin going in, that represents the 450 previously collected meals tax that we were applying over a period of years.
Right. So what I'm saying is, though, the meals tax receipt, my understanding was the meals tax would go in as into local receipts starting this coming year.
And Jim, if you could, just to respond so the mics can pick it up and folks at home can hear. I think there still are articles this year where money is going into stabilization and coming out of stabilization from meals tax, even though the concept is to go to local receipts. So there's still a process by which some of the money is being tied up.
Jim Taylor, 3 Bristol Land Advisory. So the town meeting last year approved basically the future meals tax revenue as collected will then go towards local receipts. And that will begin this coming year. So previously collected meals tax revenue
Right.
applied over a series of years to reduce taxes.
So fiscal 16 that we're looking at, the meals tax that we collect during fiscal 16 would go into local receipts?
Yes.
So does this number reflect that?
No.
So that's $600,000?
No, it will Tom, help me out here.
There are two different issues. One is
Okay.
stabilization fund education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
That's
only
why we
asking
still
these-
have the movement this year.
I would have asked these questions to Ted, but since Ted is not here,
Yeah, this
we'll do
this
the next
number.
best thing.
Right.
I gave Jim mine.
Tom Pyle, 727 Main Street for the Advisory Committee. I think some of the confusion may be that you have meals tax presented twice on this sheet. One is in the revenue side. And one is in the local tax side. If you look at meals tax on the local receipt side, you'll see that $620,000 figure. That is the currently collected meals tax on an annual basis. If you look at the $450,000 in the front page under the other revenues, that is the stabilization fund that had been built up over several years that is being spread out over many years so that it levels out.
Right. So, but the
So there's, meals tax affects this budget in two different ways.
So my question is, the $620,000 that we expect to collect in FY16, all right, is not planned to go in the stabilization fund, is that correct?
No, that is correct.
So shouldn't that $620,000 go into local receipts for?
It is in local receipts.
Oh,
If
it
you
is in
look at,
local
if you look at the last page, that's what I was trying to refer you to. If you look
Okay.
at the last page.
I'm sorry, got it,
Okay.
So the 450 is the prior stabilization money.
got it.
Any other questions? It is confusing. It is very confusing. But just to add on, there will be no increases from now on to the stabilization fund.
So, the other items then in local receipts, you said excise was increased. But things like the charges for services is down from what the actual receipts were last year. Are we still running down in this year? Do we know? Because we actually
Charge
collected
for
390, says penalty, says charges and services, we collected 393,000 last year.
Right.
we only estimate 300,000 this year. We're only putting in 300,000 for next year.
Yeah, correct.
You didn't speak about that,
Well,
did he?
as Ted explained, most of these numbers, the goal obviously is to keep them below 100% and to budget conservatively. And I think that they didn't feel that there would be a significant enough increase that would warrant.
And similarly, on licenses, fees, and permits,
Yep.
which has been going up for the last 3 years, but we're budgeting down $125,000. From $1,000,004 actual receipts in 2014 to
Right.
$1,275,000.
And I think
Does
that's.
he expect it to be down?
I think he does, and I think it's because there aren't any more major developments,
Okay.
which is reflected in the the decrease in new growth anticipated.
Okay.
So while folks still may be doing their house renovations, you're not having a BlackRock or a Linden Ponds Phase 3 or whatever it is, or Shipyard, or although Hastings is trying to do something with the Building 19 site,
Right.
it remains to be seen what'll be allowed there.
I think he also expressed a concern with when that number was higher in previous years.
Artificially high, perhaps.
That when we hit our recession, it really hit us.
Yeah, if you take a look at prior years going back to
So he's looking to be consistent.
2007, 2008,
I remember that.
and it dropped by
But
700,000.
The difference was, in those years, we really, we spent the money before we had it.
Right.
And,
You
and
could
it-
speak to that, Dennis, more than I could.
That's
I'm
right.
just,
Yeah.
what
So
he
I'm-
explained, he was trying to be consistent, and
Mhm.
so whether or not that ends up, if there's a little bump in that number, possibly.
So, and he still expects excise to be down this year from what it was last year?
No, up. So excise, although it's in
In
here.
2000, so 2015 is going to be up as well, right?
2015 is going to be, he estimated 3.9
Okay.
million. So that's a positive
Right.
of about 200,000, and that will go, if in fact that materializes, that will go into fund balance.
Got it.
Yeah, it's in the copy that was sent over, they didn't change that. We discussed in forecast that, in fact, rather than 3.7, they think it's going to be 3.9,
Right.
but he didn't change that in the forecast, but
Correct.
we have those notes. Underlying all this is that, people talk about the fund balance and that we exceeded a 20% threshold now, and, that's a great thing. But now we're looking at, I don't know what the total for snow and ice is now. We have our own snow and ice that we're looking at, the cost for snow removal and the issue with PRS. That was
townwide
unfortunate. It's a
snow and
townwide
ice.
problem, so
Except we put $3.5 million in the fund balance last year, so.
that's right.
Yeah. So I think that'll cover it.
Well, that extra 200 from excise this year will help to
Right.
offset it.
Okay.
Well, but there's plenty other, things that are proposed for some of the money that might be available. I know that there's an article that's going to be in the warrant for the 3A Summer Street corridor to look into that. I don't know how that is going to be funded if it is recommended by advisory. So, there's other things that. Well, unfortunate that Ted couldn't join us, but that's essentially what we're looking at for numbers. So by putting our number in there, when you subtract out the 713,000, so we're looking at about 903, a negative 903,000. Any other questions on that?
I have a question.
Mhm.
Here, ask Tom and Jim, what are you looking at for making up this shortfall? Okay. Okay.
So in terms of that, though, the other numbers are in here. Obviously, you haven't discussed our budget, and yet you have discussed other budgets, although you haven't taken votes yet. Is that correct? are there any significant, yeah,
Recommended increases for other departments are in that budget.
okay.
I'm sorry, I should-
Yeah, it's okay. So the all of the town administrator recommended budgets that were voted by the selectmen are reflected in the forecast. Advisory has not taken those votes. Those numbers have been inserted into the budget scorecard, which you maintain, and then there are going to be recommendations by the liaisons for those specific departments that will be discussed tomorrow evening, I think. It is going to be the 9th now. Okay. So when are you going to discuss when are you going to discuss the budget? When are you going to discuss the education budget? That is going to be tomorrow night. Okay. You'll make your recommendation tomorrow night. Okay.
And what time is that meeting? 7:30. Okay.
Yep. So advisory is meeting tomorrow evening at 7:30. They will be discussing the education budget, and the education subcommittee will make its recommendation to the full advisory tomorrow evening, and will vote all budgets on March 9th. And the education subcommittee is meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. 7 o'clock. Okay, 7 o'clock. Okay. Thank you. Dot. Let's go forward with the budget.
So I did not recreate the entire slide presentation from last night because there really has been only one change, albeit a good change, from our perspective anyway, to the numbers since then. So you have, in the audience, should have a handout that has two sides to it, and it summarizes the changes to date, the total changes to date, and then on the reverse side looks at the various categories as we've moved forward over time. So on the side that actually lists the reductions, the thing to pay attention to, first of all, is the date at the right-hand side, because that tells when the changes were made. And that's part of the discussion we were having a few minutes ago vis-a-vis what we had understood to be going into the forecast after our meeting. In any case, if you look down at the very bottom of the list of all of the changes, you'll see that there were changes subsequent to our last meeting, which was on the 12th. And at that meeting, I think I mentioned to you that we still had some outstanding not yet knowns from the faculty members who were on a leave of absence for this year. We now have all of those unknowns are now knowns. Last year, we have a few folks that asked to have a little bit more time before they made their decision. We granted that because there were job offers involved. But this year, all now 9 in total of those folks, we know where they are. And the sum total is that one person that we thought was not coming back early on, this is not one of the recent ones, actually did choose to return, so that was a money loser for us, and that's up in the very top part of the sheet. But since then, we've had one person who is not coming back who we thought would come back, and that has saved us some, and all the others were budgeted as we had predicted that they would be, returning or not, and so that didn't have any impact on the budget. So the things in the bottom of the list there that come to a total of $122,937 actually occurred last week. None of them is a reduction of services or positions or anything else. They all are a change of circumstance. One of them is a tuition for a child who has been out of district and will be returning to us in the fall. So that's a savings because of a change in circumstance. And the others are all pieces of people that we have found out more about. So that's a total of $122,937. So we've made reductions at 4 different points along the way, and all for different reasons. Some were actual reductions of services or things that we had requested in the budget, and others were changes of circumstance, but they're all listed there. And so if you look down at the bottom, the number in red, which is $713,981, is the total reductions in the bottom line since we started back in December. So you can see on that bottom line that includes the red number, the 713,981, where we started, which is the current year's budget, FY15, and the original amount that we projected in December would be what the administrative request was, and that is the 46,572,683, and then the actual adjustment downward of that bottom line, and ending up with a budget that is proposed by us still at 45,858,702, and that's a 5.44% increase over FY15 in all. If you turn it over to the other side, you can see a summary of how that budget reduction has hit the different areas of the program, the different accounts. And if you then look at the budget broken down by regular education, special education, and vocational education, you can see again the original budget for regular ed, and then you can see down at the bottom where we are as a percent over FY15 at the moment, and that's 4.83 for regular education, 7.78 for special education. VocaTech hasn't changed. We aren't predicting a different number of students at this point anyway, and so overall budget again of the 5.44%. We do know that there is a big gap between we are and somewhere in that bottom line town deficit, if you will, at this point. However, the administration side is recommending that the budget that you adopt tonight is, in fact, this budget that reflects what we need, and that we don't yet have a sense of what the other groups are going to vote. There are many changes that happen at this time of the year in the life of the school system, changes in tuition, changes in people taking leaves who had not intended to or haven't told us, possible other retirements. You can see just in the short span of less than a week, there was 22,000 in change. So our recommendation would be to not reduce from where we are, and to adopt the vote that is here, unless there's something in this budget that you all can come to consensus on as not seeing as an important need, or not seeing as something that you want to fund. But other than that, that we would adopt where we are, and then over the course of the next several weeks, we'll hear what the other groups, the advisory committee and the Board of Selectmen, are voting. And in the meantime, we will continue to look at any potential changes. I don't know of any now. Sometimes I can say, well, I think there might be another retirement. I don't know of such a thing now, but certainly we didn't know of any of these things that happened last Friday before now. So that's the recommendation that we would make for your action tonight for the operating budget.
I agree with that. I support you in this budget. I think we should hold off in making any recommendations to meet a number that we don't even know what is yet. And, we have a 7.78% increase in SPED, and I think we've done a really great job at maintaining our SPED increases over the years, particularly last year. And I think that's something that we really can't control, and we've had discussions with Town Hall, and they know that we don't control that number as much as we do the regular ed number, and we should be held harmless for it. So
we can look closely at that number. Certainly the advisory committee looked close at that number. We talked about it a bit at the meeting that we had in January, the planning meeting that we had, and we've talked about it since, and we've talked about it and looked at it, because it is a large number, and we do know that for this year. Function of two things: some increased costs, particularly of tuition, and also some increased costs for paraprofessionals, but also the reduced amount of circuit breaker for this year. And so we'll continue to talk about that and see whether or not there are ways that we can somehow mitigate that cost, which then distorts the overall budget. We haven't come up with anything particular yet. I know that Tom did ask us for some information about the status of that budget for this year, and we'll get that to you in the morning, so you have that for your deliberation, but it doesn't draw any conclusions. I think one of the things that we think about as well with respect to all the budgets this year is that there are a lot of unknowns that are very different from other years. Obviously, one big one is sitting out there in piles, and that is the whole issue of somehow paying the bills that will go with the cleanup and the roof cleanup and the snow removal and all those things. And how is that going to be handled by the town, by us? How is that responsibility going to be divided up? And that may or may not have any implications for the rest of this year or for next year. So that's one kind of unknown. We still don't have the governor's budget, which is coming out Wednesday, we think. That's another unknown that would not be typical at this part of the year. As we look at our own budget and we look at things like circuit breaker, there is a foundation review commission going on now, looking at the whole idea of the foundation budget, which for the folks at home is the funding that comes into the state to support the school budgets. And that whole commission and the formula by which we get our funds is being considered, and there'll be some recommendations that will come out later this spring. Could one of those recommendations suggest that even circuit breaker, which is really the state's effort to reimburse districts for extraordinary special ed costs, could that somehow be impacted by recommendations that will occur with respect to the foundation? Since we don't have the governor's budget, we don't know what kinds of things are in his thinking about those kinds of reimbursements. So there are a lot of things that we need to think about as we're trying to solve the one problem that's sitting in front of us, but that have unknowns that we haven't experienced before.
I'm not sure we can plan on the state bailing us out much, since they now believe they have a $1.5 billion shortfall for next year, although I'm sure they will address that. One thing that I would ask, and again, I don't know how much some of you that have been to the subcommittee meetings and you guys that obviously are here, in the past, my recollection is that we've always had some good feedback as to what the recommendation was going to be. You're going to make a recommendation tomorrow. Presumably, are you going to meet between now and tomorrow?
We're meeting tomorrow night.
But I mean, the subcommittee is going to meet tomorrow night? Oh, I'm sorry. Not and then decide at that point, and then submit that to the advisor. Okay. So, we're looking at a number here, and it's in terms of the additional, the snow and ice and the roof and whatever. Like I say, given our financial situation with fund balance, I don't see that as a tremendously damaging issue for the town. Not that I wouldn't wish that we had a lot less snow, but I guess my thinking would be, if we're showing a $900,000 deficit, and if the revenues are all where we think they ought to be, and if we're being conservative like we always are, that means there's another X number of dollars probably there that we'll find out about next year. I'm not saying anybody's putting anything, I think legitimately, Ted, typically, we end up with something more than what we have in the forms, which is great. So my thinking would be, if we have a $900,000 deficit based on here, and if there's not going to be any significant changes, just philosophically, I would say that rather than, if we want to keep the unused levy capacity, that we ought to put $500,000 in from fund balance to reduce the tax levy, and of the remaining $400,000, about maybe half of that should come out of the school budget, and half of that should come out of the rest of the town. That's my Solomonic attempt to cut the baby in half, I suppose. But I think we could make a lot of we've had a lot of discussions about the importance of various things here. I think one thing that we are pretty much in agreement on that when we had the last meeting, when we talked about these 4 areas of the various categories, I think in general, we gave our ideas, but we said beyond a few that it was really up to the administration, central office to make those decisions based on what the final numbers came out on. I mean, we talked about the facilities manager and a couple other things. So, I would be, if you may remember that a few weeks back, I had proposed, just in terms of thinking about the budget, this idea of the hold harmless on the special ed and looking at maybe about a 4% increase in the regular ed budget, what that would come out to. And it comes out to about 300,000 and change less than where we are today. So whether that's the right number or whether the right number is something more than that,
Just did the math myself. 290,447.
Yeah.
So.
So, it seems to me, and again, and we don't know, we're making our best efforts to reasonably budget for SPED, but we know we've turned back in, close to $2 million over the last couple of years. So it seems to me this is the time, based on our fund balance, based on the $3.5 million that went into fund balance last year, based on to what appears to be another $274,000, of which obviously a lot of that, if not all of that, will be eaten up with snow and ice and so forth this year. That if we believe that it's necessary not to raise the tax rate the full amount of the levy limit, and we're already putting the meals tax stabilization fund in there, that my sense is that it should come down to some number like that, which would be, like I say, about, depending on what that ends up being. I'm not saying we have to vote it tonight, but in terms of approaching it, it would probably be a number that might be, instead of 45,000,009, might be 45,000,007, some number like that.
Yeah, I think just a brief comment. I think, unfortunately, we don't get to help decide. I mean, we could on the floor of town meeting, as some have done in the past, but generally don't really get to help decide kind of how 15 members of advisory get to the number that they're going to recommend to town meeting. And I think, we need to remember, whether we agree with the concept or not, that some of the approach that they take is looking at the sustainability of our budget, right? And whether there's sufficient revenue or not, some may not support assigning that revenue to the school budget. So, yeah. Liza.
I would just say I agree with Carol and Dennis on the special ed of being held harmless, and I appreciate when the budgets were changed, the presentation of them, to pull that out so we can see that. I feel like we've presented and we've discussed what our strongest needs are, and we have had a discussion about some prioritization, and we have seen it come down even since then. And I feel like we're not necessarily getting, we haven't heard from the other side of what number should we get to. And so I feel comfortable presenting this number to advisory, but I also feel comfortable if you come back to us and we can't really make it work. But these are our needs, and some of the needs are consistent with the rest of the town. We know that we have social and emotional needs for our kids are growing, and we know from the police that domestic issues are growing on their side too. So, a lot of our issues, we have growing population. We have a growing population in town. So we're addressing the same needs as the rest of the town, and we hope you can give us some direction on the balancing of how you slice up the pie. But these are our needs. And so now I'm asking for your feedback so we can all come together to come to the right number. But I feel like we've prioritized, we've shown where we are, we've come down even further, and now I'd like to get some feedback from the other side to know if we have to go even further or not.
Yeah, I think this has been a little bit of a strange year. Obviously, there have been some meetings canceled and postponed, kind of jumping around a little bit. Typically by now, we have gotten more direction from the town side on, really what the number is that we need to come in at if, whether we choose to come in at that number or not, at least what the target is. So we'll get a little feedback tomorrow night, and we'll have 6 days before a vote to maybe discuss it offline some more, and then after a vote is taken, we'll see if, what we need to do. Ed, did you have anything you wanted to?
I just would be on record as supporting the presentation of 45,858,702, and would like to thank Dr. Gallo, Ellen, and John for their over-the-top effort to get us to this point. Thank the three of you.
I agree with what's been said. I'm comfortable voting on that number as well tonight. I would sort of concur with other statements about being held harmless for the special ed budget, and I would agree with Dennis that, we might eventually get down to take $200,000 to $300,000 off to perhaps focus on the regular education budget, but I am concerned that we also have some equity here between the regular ed budget and if anyone's looking for us to cut deeply, we have to provide the special ed, and I'm certainly not in favor of really digging into the regular education budget, because there is equity involved here for all of our students. So it's just something else.
That would not be something we would be recommending. We touch
I
that
understand
budget
that.
only as it regards changes in information.
Right.
Yeah, I think, last year it was kind of a different situation where we were initially looking at a larger increase in the regular ed, and it was kind of amplified by the fact that we were looking at a decreased cost in special ed, coupled with increased reimbursements for that. And this year is kind of the flip of that. I don't think the regular education ask is as great, but I think it's amplified by the increase in special ed costs and the reduced reimbursements that are projected. So it's a problem, and I don't know how we get there. So this is my fifth budget. If experience helps at all, there is movement always after we take a vote. There just is. Things happen, whether it's additional retirements, although we don't expect any. Other monies are found. Dennis, you mentioned the governor's budget is coming out on the 4th. We talked about this in forecast. I don't think anyone anticipates any increase in state aid. I think they're not necessarily counting on decrease, but assuming it'll be flat, and then we'll see. There may be some areas, circuit breaker and others, and 9C cuts, which do, get impacted.
I was going to mention that because, in fact, this special ed budget reflects an assumption about circuit breaker for this year, and there has been a 9C cut in circuit breaker. What I want to see in writing, and we don't have it yet, we have heard talk that the state does not always fully allocate those dollars, and therefore the appropriated dollars by the state, and therefore that amount of money that is retained by the state could make up statewide for the circuit breaker cut. But if in fact it didn't, and there was some allocation, if you will, of the reduction of the 9C reduction across districts, then in fact the anticipated revenue that we would be expecting to come in this year, likely in the fourth quarter, because it comes quarterly, could be less. We had one year a number of years ago where districts simply didn't get their fourth quarter payment. Well, that fourth quarter payment, together with the other 3 quarters of payment, is our offset for next year in this budget. So that's another one of those things that's out there as an unknown. That certainly is another reason for saying let's vote something now and then see where we are and what new information might be there.
Right. So Dennis, I hear what you're saying about kind of the 4% number and being reasonable and splitting the baby, and I recognize that number is not a crazy number to reduce what we're looking at now, but I don't think we need to do it yet. I think there's still time. It's March 2nd. Town meeting is April 27th. A lot can happen. Even after advisory votes, a lot can happen. So I would I'd like to stay where we are now. The administration's proposed budget, I think, they've done a lot of good work to get down from where it was originally proposed 2 months ago. My feeling would be to stick with that for now and see what happens.
Just trying to map out
Yep.
a course.
No, and it's a reasonable one to map up. I mean, I looked at the same number.
I mean, I guess the bigger question in my mind is, if it's a $900,000, deficit, if we are gracious enough to work and try to find $200,000 or $300,000, that leaves $600,000. So, that has to come from somewhere, and that would either mean, $500,000 or $600,000 from the town side of the budget, or additional revenues that are not currently contemplated, or money from fund balance that's used, or use the entire levy capacity, or those kinds of things, which is clearly a discussion but hopefully a discussion you guys will have.
Proposed levy capacity, there's going to be another $100,000 proposed this year to get it to $500,000,
Right.
correct? I think that's
Right, yeah.
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 So, does anyone want to make a motion?
We adopt the administration recommended budget for 2016, 2017 school year. 15-16. Let's just go ahead and do that one too.
For $45,858,702.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Is that a second, Dennis?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a capital budget. Yep. And I think while, it wasn't what we had requested, I thought for the most part we felt pretty good about what we were given, and particularly that the depot parking lot was going to get addressed one way or the other. So unless folks wanted to go into any detail at all or discuss it, I would entertain a motion on those figures up there.
I'd like to make a motion. I have 988.
Is it for
Yeah.
988,480?
Yeah, it includes right. So what they said was that they took out the 170 and dropped it below the line for purposes but it would likely go back into the school allocation.
So I'll make
So do it as two separate numbers. Just identify the 170 as the depot parking.
So make a recommendation that we adopt.
Yeah, do the total, and then of which 170 is attributable to the depot
Okay.
parking. How
For a
about that?
total of $988,480, $170,000, which will be for depot parking lot paving, for which we are all very grateful, for the 2015-2016 school year.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's great. Terrific.
Good.
Okay. So, skipping to 6.7. Finally. So you have in your packets a couple things. Number one, I reprinted all of the planning board decisions with respect to site plan approval for the high school fields. There was an original decision and 4 amendments, and they're all together for you. I just printed them off today. They came right from the town website, so okay. It's not a great format, but at least it's all together, and it came right off the planning board website. In addition, you have in your packets a copy of the school committee voted final usage policy dated January 14th, 2013, and attached to that is the high school parking and traffic plan for large events. Okay. The usage policy that we adopted varies from that which is attached to the planning board decision as an exhibit in just a couple of minor ways. And we can talk about that in the context of this. So the purpose of this is, number one, next Monday is the one-year look back, which was one of the conditions of site plan approval by the planning board, that we come back, you know, at some point in the future. It was designated as 1 year. It's been more than 1 year. But all the work wasn't completed, so it really couldn't be scheduled until all the work was completed, and actually all the as-built plans were just filed in early December, and the Conservation Commission finally was able to review them and actually issued a partial certificate of compliance with respect to the order of conditions. The complete certificate of compliance will be hopefully issued in the spring once the snow is gone, the sun shines, and grass grows, and we can confirm that the drainage works as it was intended to work and designed. So the other, so that's scheduled for Monday night. There may be people from the public who want to share feedback about the facilities since they've been put into operation initially on October 12th of 2013, I believe, and then throughout the ensuing year while the concession building was constructed and the baseball and softball fields were completed. We've gone through kind of a full year of use on the multipurpose synthetic turf field. After we have, and there may be feedback from the planning board, and after we have that opportunity to get that feedback, we can then request a modification to the site plan approval conditions. And I've discussed this with Margaret Conity at some length. In fact, met with her just this evening before coming here to go over some of her comments and those that she's collected from coaches and other folks who use the field. Also had some conversations with folks involved in youth sports organizations. And there are some things I think that we should seek to modify. If you turn, just so you can look at it at the same time, if you turn to page 10 of the planning board decisions that I printed out for you, that shows the essentially the usage policy conditions. That starts. It reads under Exhibit B. So just a few things that jump out that we kind of noticed right away 2 years ago. In fact, I think I even had a discussion with Bill Ramsey at the time about it that would need to be addressed. Is you'll notice that there's language in the fall schedule about Friday nights for Hingham High School football games. So there's no provision for Friday night usage of lights and or sound for any female sporting events. So that would be a Title IX violation. So I would suggest that we request that be amended. If you compare that with our usage policy, we did not specify football games, but rather just use on Friday night games, which could be for football, for field hockey, for soccer, what have you. So they did make a few changes to our adopted policy that I would suggest that we seek to have changed. In addition, Margaret had some comments looking at the first provision on the fall season. The usage of lights Monday to Friday until 8:30. Margaret believes that it should be 9 o'clock end time because that would provide for 3 different teams to have 2-hour practices on the field from 3 to 5, 5 to 7, and 7 to 9, which is the way they run practices. So if it could go to 9 o'clock during the week, that would be preferable. And also that doesn't specifically reflect the ability to have playoff games, although if you look at the additional notes, there is a note about tournament and playoff games being scheduled at the discretion of the athletic director with permission of the school committee. So that may be a sufficient note, and I think we spent a lot of time working on that then, but that was just something that Margaret pointed out. In addition, if you go down to the, well, before we move on from there, with respect to the Saturday night games and or Sunday games that might be played by youth football, there's no play-by-play permitted under the conditions of the planning board decision, where play-by-play is permitted for the high school football. And I can tell you, just having been involved in youth football, that everywhere we play, they have play-by-play for their games, except Hingham, because we're not permitted to do that. That was a strong request from the administration of Hingham Youth Football to see if we could add play-by-play to the football games. So that would be something that I would recommend based on the request. Going down to the spring season, Margaret had a similar comment to the Monday to Friday till 8:30 p.m., extending it to 9 p.m. to allow for 3 2-hour practice slots, 3 to 5, 5 to 7, and 7 to 9. The public address, if you skip down a little bit, the PA twice a week, Monday to Friday until 7:30, and in addition, PA until 8:30 on 3 Friday night games. So I think it says, just looking in the conditions in the planning board. Yeah. So Margaret's point was that they really only announce goals, that restricting the PA to just certain parts of the game or to end before the end of it wouldn't be what she would hope for. That they really only announce goals. Other than football, there's no play-by-play. There's no, but when they have a goal, whether it's field hockey or soccer or lacrosse, they announce the goal, and they'd like to be able to do that. That's kind of a custom.
Well, that's in general.
In
Fall
general,
and spring.
correct. She put the note in spring, but I would say it's a note. It should be a note for both, field hockey, soccer.
It probably won't be like the Brazilian guy, right? Oh no, it's a goal! Yeah, like that kind of thing.
Parker also feels strongly that the players should be introduced. I remember that.
Yeah, and I think
That's
we're
allowed for,
permitted to
right?
do that. I think that's generally in the.
On both teams.
Right. So those are really Margaret's comments on the usage policy, and I didn't really have anything either. If you look at the traffic plan for large events, there was one comment that I had thought of and had discussed with her, and she had the same comment. So with respect to night football games, and I would argue it would be night any other games, but football games tend to be more heavily attended unless it's a tournament game or playoff game or something. But the requirement of 6 to 8 police officers is excessive. And Margaret had indicated most towns use 2 or 3. And it's really we foot the bill for that cost. And it's something that Dot mentioned before too, I think. And that's something that I would think we would request reducing.
Clearly, it was we were being overly conservative and
Right.
trying to make sure that we would do everything we could to eliminate any additional traffic issues. I think that was the
Sure.
feeling at the time.
Absolutely.
Right.
I mean, there was a concern about safety. We were adding parking spaces, and we had some heavily attended events, and there was concern about what would happen if we had turf and lights. But I think we've seen after an experience that it's worked out rather well. And other than the initial complaints about the sound in October of 2013, which was before it was regulated, I don't think we've received any complaints. You know,
The general attendance on the Friday night games has been what I would call comfortable. I mean, people weren't milling about, people were seated in the stands, the parking lots were not overflowing, people weren't parking out on the road or anything like that. So I think some of the concern about the size of the attendance went back to when we had some of those temporary lights for lighted games, and it was unique
We
and.
didn't have sufficient parking.
Right, and we
So
didn't
now
have
that
the
we
parking as well.
sufficient Parking, and people have been, I don't want to use the word trained, but they're used to having it and using it.
Mhm.
I think it's less of an issue.
Well, you have the lighted walkways now.
Exactly.
That's different.
It's the best feature of the whole
But,
campus.
you know, the 2 or maybe as many as 3 games at night, and they would be football because they were well attended. When I would mosey down to the overflow parking on Ray's plan here, number 3, it seemed as if there always were school employee maintenance people there. Am I right? Over and above, in addition to police officers? Because they were always there.
Yeah, you mean to direct the parking?
To
and- yeah.
tell people where to go, and
Right, particularly if we're
when you get
using
into
the
area
overflow.
3, which is
Right.
not lined, it's
Mhm.
just a
Right.
playing field, which would then play into looking at the 6 to 8 police officer detail numbers. Okay. Got it.
So, and, you know, as you know, at the time when we were going through the permitting process,
Oh, yeah.
we wanted to get this done. And there was some pushback, you know, obviously permitting through the Dover Amendment, which we were perfectly entitled to do, and it was appropriate. And, you know, the fact of the matter is, with respect to high school use, which is an educational use, you know, the lights and the sound don't fall into those 8 categories of reasonable regulation. But, you know, we kind of went along because it wasn't a crazy ask, and it was the first time we were going to have lights, and nobody knew how it was going to change things. But I think it's, you know, it's not unreasonable to expect you know, to go in and ask that we make some adjustments under the circumstances. You know, certainly with respect to the high school use. You know, I think for the most part, from what I've heard in my experience, the youth sports have gotten great use out of the facilities, have really enjoyed it, and the only request has been to seek to get play-by-play for football.
So have we been contacted by the Olympics 2024 people about the?
How about using our?
We are a satellite location, sure.
I had 2 comments. I think making the terminology as generic and unisex as possible would be greatly helped, especially considering what happened with girls soccer. I mean that, not just that it was a tournament run, but that was very popular. The one comment that I heard was if there's any way when the field is not being used to be able to turn the lights off. And so
Yeah.
that is not part of this policy, but that it, from a practical standpoint,
Well, it actually
because
is.
that,
I think it is.
well, yeah,
There were some
it's,
violations, if you will, of that. For example, I can remember one particular night when the lights were on because someone was anticipated to be showing up for the next
Someone
hour.
was
so
scheduled,
that
but they
and they
canceled.
didn't come. And so there have been a couple instances where there have been lights on and no one on the field. But that was not by intent, it was
Yeah.
individual circumstance.
well, it says
but-
in the policy, I saw that it says no lights will be turned on if it's not in use.
Right.
But I think it's been in use and then
Well,
didn't get.
the practice team went off and the other team
Show up,
didn't.
yeah.
ended in-
So if they, even with the maintenance staff, if they can be more aware of that.
Right, and they should be able to make
Yeah.
that kind of adjustment and turn them off.
It's done by phone.
Oh,
There's no switch in the concession building. It's all done by internet electronically.
Crazy.
Yeah, no, I think there were 2
Yeah, there were
occasions
2 instances, and
that
they
happened
both
pretty
were.
close together where teams had scheduled and were supposed to be on the field and then canceled, and the lights remained on until 8:30,
And didn't need
and there
to
was
be.
nobody on the field.
well, that might, it might come up
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah,
from the
right,
neighbors.
yeah.
But I think we can explain that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unless they say, oh, I think it happened more, but, you know,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
doable, it's a management
No, it did
issue,
happen a
so.
couple of times, and there was an explanation, but the neighbors would not know that. All they
Right.
saw was lights and,
But at the same time, it's not like it was on at, 10 or 11 o'clock and left on when it wasn't supposed to be. It was on when it was permitted to be on, and just someone had canceled and wasn't able to be turned off early. So. but
what is the
fair-
timeline, Ray, for the decision? So we'd have a hearing and then?
Yeah, so I'm going to find out next Monday. So we need to, if we want to move forward with this, prepare a modification, a site plan, so we can work with John on that to prepare the application for modification to the site plan approval. But we can't submit it until after next Monday. And I would hope that we could get a hearing within 4 weeks.
Should we wait to prepare the modification until the hearing to see what bubbles up at the hearing?
Yeah, I mean, we could. I think we could start working on it one way or the other. But yeah, in any event, we couldn't submit it before next Monday.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I appreciate Margaret's help and input on that as well. Okay,
Covered everything?
I think we did.
Order.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any 48-hour items?
Well, actually.
Oh, John,
oh,
yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to talk about the bid, the van bid.
Sure.
So I did make that check last week. As you know, I had gone out to bid for 2 vans. One was a wheelchair van, and we did award that bid last week. The other was just a regular 10-passenger van, and one of the requirements of the van was these integrated safety seats for the integrated convertible safety seats, which really, they're automatic seat carriers, so they're child safe with 5-point harness systems. And one bidder had not bid those seats, and the other bidder did bid those seats. And when I called the one that didn't bid the seats, they had the lowest bid. And they told me, I said, they said there's not any seat that has passed safety inspections with the new Ford Transit. This year with the vans, the Ford discontinued their old model of the base vehicle, which gets cut up. So then, once you do that and you come up with a new model, every single component within those has to be tested. So, with that information from that vendor who was the lowest bidder, I did call the bidder that did put the had a higher bid, but had put those integrated seats into the vehicle to say, have these met safety standards? And I said, show me, send me the certification. And he could not produce the certification. And last week he said, well, these seats are going to be tested this week. Okay. So the seats are supposed to be tested this week, but then the email came today and said that the people that test these seats has scheduled it for next week. Okay. So, with that, and then I talked to Patrick too. We really need these seats in the vans. All the other vans have these seats. If you don't, then you're going to have to buy car seats and you're going to have to strap them in, and it just is not going to be a doable, a workable, vehicle. So, in order to be fair to the vendors, both vendors, I think that what I would like to do is call the other vendor and say, either do one or two things. Say, are you getting your seat tested as well, your brand seat tested as well within these next 2 weeks on this Ford Transit? And if so, will your price remain the same? To ask both of them if I could defer the bid award up to the 45 days that Chapter 30B would allow me. Okay, if the other vendor is not getting their seat inspected in the same time frame, I think to be fair to everybody, what I should do is reject the bid for that van and just take out an ad tomorrow and do another bid and get that get the new bid underway. It'll take probably about 3 or 4 weeks to make complete cycle on it. But we could get the bid awarded, and by then, hopefully, all the equipment and components of the new van that we need will in fact be safety testified. Safety tested, certified. So, so I think that the action I would like to take on is I'll reject the bid unless both vendors are going to have their safety testing happen within the next 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'd reject, just to be fair to everybody.
You may, before you rebid it or repost it, you may want to just wait till at least one of them is certified, just in case the guys, 3 weeks from now, they say, well, they haven't done it yet, and then you could be in the same situation. So if it's really going to happen next week.
Well, if I was going to do that, Dennis, what I would do is I'd try to get an ad in tomorrow, because
Okay.
that ad will not be placed until next week, from the procurement in the goods and services bulletin.
Right.
And then I could actually put the bid opening out 3 weeks.
Okay.
And
I just,
yeah,
wouldn't want to go through all this and find out neither of them have a certified seat 6 weeks from now.
true, right. Although I will talk to both of them again. I mean, the one of the vendors, the one that initially put the seats on there, has said he's just put out several other bids with this, so he's really working on the company to make sure that it gets safety approved. And hopefully the other one is too, so we can be competitive.
Are these aftermarket companies, they just buy the frame and the chassis and then they just customize it?
That's basically, that's how they work. Yep, they're all just regular, these are Ford, this is a Ford 150 Transit.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but, they had a different
pickup
Ford
truck.
model before.
Your 150, it's your pickup truck.
No, it's a van.
It's a chassis.
It's a chassis.
Van is,
It's interesting that.
it's like a delivery van.
How many of these things,
Well,
a year, I mean, in the country, how many of these vans are purchased?
I'm sure hundreds. But when Ford changes their model or the chassis, now every component has to be retested to meet national and state safety standards. So it's always an interesting, learning experiences within the school business once you understand how all these components come together. It takes time, but ultimately we get the vehicle. This is a capital item for this year. We will have that vehicle. We're not the wheelchair van is the one we're really wanted to get on board. We do need this other. It is a replacement. Our existing vans are in good shape, so we have time to get the replacement. So this delay of a bid award is not hurting us so much.
Well, if I'm one of these aftermarket companies and I realize they're going to change the model, I go out and I stockpile a dozen or so of last year's models.
Yeah, but a dozen won't get you anywhere, Ed. I mean, North River Collaborative, they're in the transportation business. They probably have to order a dozen themselves. And other schools that provide their own special education transportation need vans also. And I build it so that I say or equal, and or equal could mean if you have a different, model, I'll take a Chevy, I'll take a Dodge. Just make sure that it passes all the safety standards and it has the same type of equipment that I'm specifying. So, but the only thing that comes is, we probably about 8 bidders got the package or requested the package, and only 2 bids arrived. So, not easy work, I don't think, getting through all these safety tests.
Okay. Dot.
Just one other 48-hour item. Brad handed out this flyer about the upcoming antique show, which is annual. Different people benefiting from the fundraising each time, but you'll notice the dates on it, and so therefore we need to do some more homework about if we were to move toward a Saturday date. It would seem that the 21st isn't one that can work, because the event is at our middle school, so either the event would have to change or we might want to look to a different Saturday.
But I thought that was the only Saturday that worked.
Well, that was the only, not knowing this.
Well, they may need to change their date.
Well, I'm just pointing out, it's something we
Well,
need
it's
to
only
do
half
some
a
more.
day too, so it starts at 11, right?
Some more
Although they'll have
work
to set
on.
up.
By the way, a similar thing that we had a question about last week was the status of the Good Friday Walk. If in fact, we were going to be using a building, and they actually postponed that today, concerned that the walkways wouldn't be suitable for that kind of an event, and it's a 42-year event in Hingham. So they will be looking to reschedule. I don't know when that would be, but likely in warmer weather, so.
And FYI, I've been to this show for several years. It was at the old middle school. They occupied the gym,
Yeah, it's
the
big.
ramp, the
Caf-
hallway, and then the cafeteria.
Yes, yeah.
Where the new middle school, as big as the auditorium, the gym is, I would think that you might be able to put all of the vendors in that one spot. Maybe
Yeah, I
just
think
don't use
parking could be a challenge, though.
Parking.
If we were to do that.
Parking.
On
Never
the other
been an-
hand.
Never has been an issue.
Yeah. No, but if school were in session on that day, it could be an issue.
Teachers, oh, okay, yeah.
The only other thing is that you could look at the hours there. So if in fact that day, Saturday, were an early release, and it's now scheduled to go from 11 to 5, could it go from 1 to 6 or longer on Sunday, or some other combination of things might be able to work. So it just deserves a little more look.
I would just like to announce, maybe not everybody knows, but so we've hired a new high school varsity football coach. Margaret made the announcement a few days ago, and he will actually be meeting with his players tomorrow afternoon for the first time. I understand he attended the boys' hockey game last night in Hingham garb, so it was good to
All the way down to Falmouth. That
good to
was-
know. Right. So there were 3 finalists, and the new football coach, his name is Chris Aruka. He's a teacher in Marshfield, and was the offensive coordinator for Marshfield for a long time, and very excited to have him join us. So we just wanted to thank the committee that worked on that. That was long process. I think there were 65 applicants, interviewed 6 or so candidates, and narrowed it down to 3 finalists. So, okay. I don't think we have
Would you like a motion?
subcommittee reports, so yeah, please.
Make a motion to adjourn? Second?
All those in favor? Aye.